E3 is dead, and Nintendo is the one that holds the smoking gun. Now, I know that's a very controversial statement, but in a sense, it is true. This is not clickbait. This is actually kind of a retrospective about what happened to E3 and how Nintendo's responsible for being the assassin that took it down. That's an interesting topic, isn't it? Anyway, if you're interested in more topics, video game discussions, let us know in the comments section below. And also, if you missed E3, let us know if you missed E3.
Does the hurt ever go away?
I wish I could say yes, but it will get better in time. For you. That I promise.
So, E3 Entertainment Expo is dead. According to the ESA, they have announced that E3 will no longer be held, and they didn't really cite a reason. There are a lot of rumors that people suggest that E3 was killed because of the T-virus, having to shut down for a couple years and also do their digital presentation, which didn't really work very well. Now, E3 was also a very big revenue stream for the state of California. Both hotels, food, shopping, Disney World, land, whatever, all of that saw a spike in revenue during the time of E3. It was a massive event that was held for people all over the world from 1995 until 2021, and there will be no 2024. So, very sad, but E3 is gone. But I believe the rabbit hole goes a lot deeper, and Nintendo is the one responsible for killing E3 with their Nintendo Direct presentations. Now, if you don't know, Nintendo for a very long time was a key player for the Nintendo presentations that were held at E3. It would act as both their, hey, these are the games that are coming out, along with everybody else, but also it was their fiscal year ending, where they would kind of go over stuff that they should have done at GDC. And it was a big event, like, for Nintendo. Nintendo would always compete with the big companies, and they'd have their massive presentations, sometimes celebrities. They would announce their new systems, all kinds of stuff. It was a big deal. Over time, Nintendo got sick and tired of the narrative that was happening because of Western game journalists, people in the United States, mostly, and people in the United Kingdom. Although the United Kingdom was pretty tame and respectful for the Wii. Americans were not. In fact, press would always dump on whatever new Wii game came out because they were secretly mad at Nintendo for doing well and not giving them another GameCube and giving them basically two GameCubes fused together, the Wii. Now, the Wii's mission statement is they were trying to appease to a untapped vein in the gaming market, which was the casual gamers. And they did. The Wii, even if you didn't like it, was a very successful system. And basically, Iwata, by the time 2011 rolled around, he was sick and tired of all the misinformation about the system, as well as wanted to control the spread of information and go directly to his consumers. So Reggie Fils-Aimé in October of 2011 actually hosted the first ever Nintendo Direct, which was only about 8 minutes long, and they just went over a couple games. I believe Super Mario 3D Land was one of the games, and slowly but surely they started churning out more of these Nintendo Directs. Now, they kept up their E3 presentation until 2012, and then they went the way of the dodo with doing their own thing, which was unheard of. Now, beforehand, Nintendo started doing what was called a pre-E3 show, which is where all their big information would be, and then they would save a little bit of surprises for their actual presentation. One of the big presentations that I can remember is the big E3 showing for the Wii U in 2012, a couple months before it would actually release. Now, they had a lot of great games to show, and they were really trying to get people on board with the Wii U. Now, a lot of journalists and also just regular media across the United States made a lot of misconceptions about the system, about its capabilities, as well as if it was an attachment to the Wii. In fact, there were a lot of companies doing nightly news that said this holiday there's an awesome new feature for the Wii coming out, the Wii U. So maybe in hindsight, calling the Wii U the successor to the Wii was kind of a bad thing. In fact, the Wii U in its lifetime sold poorly compared to even the GameCube or the N64. In all, case and purposes, it was a flop. It really was. Now, I enjoyed the Wii U. My wife and I covered it extensively. We worked a lot with Nintendo as part of their brand ambassador during the creation of the Wii U. We were like one of the first early YouTubers that had access to the system. We enjoyed the system tremendously. But, you know, by the time the Switch came around, there was no reason to have the Kwings working with Nintendo anymore, so we were let go and then blacklisted, which is always a painful thing, but mainly because I was a critic, and I was critical of some of the games that released at the end of the Wii U and the beginning of the Switch's life cycle. But they actually have a clause in their contract about what content creators are not supposed to do, and I'm responsible for that clause. You're welcome. So, if there are any brand ambassadors, I'm sorry. But you know, I'm going to be me. I've always been a game journalist going back to 2004. If there's a problem with a game, I am not a paid shill that is going to tell you everything that is great about the game when there wasn't. And Star Fox Zero, still, I defend my actions, had a lot of problems, and I feel like I did nothing wrong. But anyway, that's besides the point. Getting back to the whole E3 thing. So, over time, Nintendo wasn't just happy with their pre-E3 event. They wanted to have their actual event be a Nintendo Direct.
Why, that's very good. Yes, I like that.
This sent shockwaves through the industry because Nintendo always went to the press things. They always had their presentation. Even though their, 2012 and 2011 presentations weren't all that interesting, they were always there. But Nintendo and Iwata especially were like, hey, wait a second. If we could up the ante of our Nintendo Directs and really make them like the sole focus of our E3 presentation and do it before E3, we can change the game. Like, literally, we can put all the information, right out there ourselves, and then we can cut off all this negativity. We can get rid of all this misinformation. We can get rid of all the leaks. We can be the fount of information for our consoles, for the 3DS, for the Wii U, for the Switch. And so, Nintendo took a gamble and they did their first ever only Nintendo Direct for E3, and it was a huge success.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
Over time, more and more companies would join on the bandwagon of this only recorded presentation, a Nintendo Direct, if you will. EA, then it was Ubisoft, then it was PlayStation, and then it was Xbox. And even before the T-Virus, more and more companies would stop doing massive presentations at E3, and this was a problem for the ESA. Now, I don't know if I've said it already because it's very early in the morning, but E3 was a massive revenue opportunity for the state of California. Like, it was a big deal for hotels, for travel, for planes, for food, shopping, all that other stuff. Plus, you have to remember that developers were paying a lot of money for not only to rent out these massive theater halls for their massive presentations, but also to have places set up for people to play their games. So, if I remember correctly, at one point, for 600 square feet at E3, a developer would have to pay anywhere between $30,000 to $60,000 per 600 square feet. Now, the more feet that you add in, the bigger your booth is, the more expensive it got. So, Nintendo and Iwata really also started to limit the size of their booths as E3s went on. In fact, I remember one E3 that we attended when they only did a Nintendo Direct. I think it was the next year. I think it was 2013 is when they made the announcement that Mega Man would be coming to Smash Bros. Ultimate. And we noticed that the Nintendo booth was a lot smaller than it had been in previous years. Now, I had attended the following year, the 2012, but I was working with another company. I didn't get to be a part of the theater experience for the press events. I was working with, I believe at the time, Activision and Blizzard, and also doing some stuff with Disney for Disney Infinity. So I didn't really get to experience the awesomeness of those presentations. But I did get to watch the Nintendo Direct from my hotel before Amber and I went to the E3 hall, and everybody was buzzing about what Nintendo was doing. Like, they seized everything at E3 that year, and they weren't even there for a presentation. Now, they had their games available to play, and they had interviews and stuff like that, but, I mean, they just changed the game. There was no coming back from that. Yes! Yes! Years later, they eventually, I think, stopped doing an E3 altogether, even with their presentation being a Nintendo Direct, and they just called it Nintendo Direct June. And then, again, more and more companies saw what Nintendo was doing. Nintendo was a trailblazer, and they're just like, yeah, we don't need to do this anymore. There's really no reason. We can save money. we can cut out the narrative from Western game journalists and we can go directly to our consumers, which Nintendo proved that by them actually being able to talk directly to us, I mean, they just increased their profits, they saved money, they got the information out to people who actually care about their stuff, and there was really no reason for the middleman E3 anymore. And as time went on, I mean, that was it. E3 started to slowly kind of trip up, and, you know, every year after that, I would say by the reveal of the Switch, they started to lose more and more big companies that were sponsoring them. And even if the T-Virus hadn't happened, I'm a firm believer that E3 was going to die anyway. But again, the one who killed E3, at least very slowly, and made them terminal was Nintendo, because Nintendo was the one that was like breaking from tradition from 1995 that they are no longer going to be holding massive press events. They're going to do their own thing. And it worked.
Most impressive.
Unfortunately, you know, E3 was such a dinosaur at that point that there was really nothing that the company could really do. They tried during the pandemic to do a digital presentation, but it didn't have the same impact as their trade event, and they didn't make enough money. So, you know, based on the fact that there was no E3 this year, and they were always kind of like, we're going to come back and we're going to do all this other stuff, and the rise of the PAX smaller game shows that Nintendo and Sony are a big part of, and Capcom, I mean, really in this day and age, E3, it's really not necessary anymore. Just like basically game journalists today aren't really as important as they were 20, 30 years ago, because if you really think about this, game companies now are responsible for breaking the important news, and then we as YouTubers and Twitch people are just basically repeating information that's technically old news. All we're doing is reacting to the information that these game companies have released. There's no more scoops, there's no more special interviews that you can get. All of that is handled by the corporation that makes these games now, and Iwata was the one responsible for ushering in a new era of game information. R.I.P. Iwata, always one of my favorites. And that's pretty much it. Nintendo is responsible, whether you like it or not, as the killer of E3, although very, very slowly. But now I want to hear from all of you guys and gals. How do you feel about Nintendo being responsible for taking your E3 away from you eventually? Are you mad? Are you upset? Or do you love Nintendo Direct so much that you just don't care? Let me know in the comments section below. And yeah, just to recap, basically you get 4 Nintendo Directs a year, mostly, and also you get special Nintendo Directs that are geared towards singular releases like Mario and Pokemon, and sometimes Smash Brothers, you know? There's really no reason for these expensive trade shows anymore. There just isn't, because the news always comes directly to you by your favorite company. So anyway, people, if you want more topic videos like this in the gaming space, let us know in the comment section below. We're always trying to figure out what's going to appease the algorithm gods. And it's kind of a hard thing. A lot of clickbait, a lot of flashy titles, and sometimes it doesn't work. But it's 50-50 compared to just uploading and being at the mercy of being shadow banned and not hitting the search engine. So we're going to continue to do these spicy videos because we have no choice. Anyway, later today we have an awesome video for you on the new Pokemon DLC, which you may have missed because the Switch took forever to download and install last night, so we had to do an 11 o'clock episode. We got a 4 o'clock episode for you guys today, plus more of the buggy Arkham Knights on Nintendo Switch, and then Tekken 8, which has nothing to do with Nintendo. Alright people, thanks so much for watching this little retrospective on the death of E3, and I will see you next time. God bless, and happy gaming!